My name is David, and I'm a young high school graduate who is currently trying to quit my job. But I have my reasons, and I will explain now. It was May of 2018. Everyone I knew in high school was working by that time, even my older brother. But I didn't want any of that. I was 16 and didn't want to spend my summer working for some company or cheesy little store down the corner. All I wanted was to have fun and enjoy what little youth I had left, since I would be graduating in the next year and a half. But of course, that's not how it works. I was still 16 after all, meaning legally my parents could tell me to do whatever they wanted, and that meant getting a job. So, over the next couple of weeks, in between assignments and homework, I spent my time searching around for any job opportunities I could, whether it be through the newspapers, magazines, television, or even the internet. I spent many a day just trying to find the right job, hoping to at least find one that was suitable for me and my petty skills. To an adult, it may not seem like much, but to a teen like me, it seemed like forever till I would find the right job. And I almost felt like I would be Thanos snapped out of existence by the time I was finished. That is, until my job found me. I was passing by one of the local super Chuck E. Cheese's in our town when I noticed a young boy about my age walking outside the door. At first, I wanted to wave hello just to be courteous, but the look on his face told me he wasn't in much of a good mood. Then I heard him speak. Only, it wasn't speaking so much as him just yelling, which from his tone sounded almost more afraid than angry. Now, when I think about it, I know he had a good reason.
Forget it!
He shouted.
Forget it! I'm done with this place!
He continued, storming off and tossing his work uniform into the trash can. I wonder what that was all about, I thought to myself. That's when the manager came out of the door.
Wait!
He shouted.
Come back!
He continued, before heading back inside with a somber look on his face. I then realized this was my chance. Now I could get a job, and one so close to my house as well, which was even better. Yet, I still found that it would be best to follow my parents' wishes, even though I didn't want to work, rather than to be grounded the whole summer or be sent off to some summer camp with a bunch of strangers. So, I entered inside, and walked up to the worker at the ticket counter. "Hello, sir," he kindly greeted with a bright smile. "Are you here with a party that arrived a few moments ago?" Letting out a chuckle. I spoke. "No. Actually, I'm actually here for a job." Letting out a chuckle himself. The ticket clerk smiled once again. "I do apologize for the confusion, sir," he said. "Just take a seat on that bench and I'll go get the manager." He continued before walking off. "Thank you," I said as I sat down and waited. After about 10 minutes, the ticket clerk came out, the manager, and I recognized him right away. It was my high school buddy, Sebastian.
So you're the one who came here to apply for a job.
Sebastian? I asked in a surprised tone of voice, looking at him. I could tell he was just as shocked and surprised as me.
David?
He asked.
Is that you?
He continued as he looked at me. "Gotta say, never thought I'd see you as a working type," I jokingly said. "Especially here of all places," I continued.
Yeah, well, I got tired of the folks nagging on and on about how I need to do something other than art commissions,
said Sebastian.
"Anyway, here's your job application."
He continued as he handed me a clipboard with a paper attached to it. Quickly filling out the application, I then handed it back to Sebastian, who in turn handed it over to the ticket clerk.
"Please bring this to my office,"
said Sebastian.
"I'll be busy taking my friend on a tour of the pizzeria."
Nodding, the ticket clerk grabbed the job application, leaving a sign on the front desk that said, "Will return shortly. Thank you," before running off in a hurry. Of course, this worried me a bit. Would I have to really work that quickly? As we began to tour the place, I got a good look at everything and everyone around me, so as to better understand what it would be like and to get a good feel of the environment, as well as to memorize it all, so I wouldn't get lost. It was rather huge with several different broken up areas, such as an arcade room, a play area containing obstacles and anything else fun, a laser tag and laser grid room, a stage show area with a built-in interactive dance floor where the animatronics would perform various dance movements based on what their hidden eye cameras caught the guests doing, and a very large dining area with lots of chairs, as well as a buffet counter, a kitchen with a medium-sized sliding window, which was used to view how they made their food, and also to pass out food to the staff during birthday parties and or special events. Lastly, there were 2 separate restrooms, one for customers and one for employees. Basically, this place had a lot of stuff that no normal Chuck E. Cheese anywhere else would have. It was all rather expensive stuff at that. How they could afford it all was a mystery to me, yet I was impressed by it, and how amazing it was. Sure seemed like a fun place to be, too. However, the tour didn't end there. That was just the first floor, and we still have 3 more floors to go. Just how big was this Chuck E. Cheese anyways? I didn't have to wait that long to find out. We then approached the 2nd floor, which led to a door labeled CEC, Staff Lounge. Staff only, in parentheses under it. And had a key card right under it, probably for security reasons, and to keep out intruders or some curious child who strayed too far past the party area. To unlock the door, Sebastian placed a card into the card reader before pushing it open, leading us to the next part of our tour. As we entered inside, I was amazed by what I saw. Futon couches all around the room, a large 50-inch HD TV, multiple gaming systems included with wireless Bluetooth headphones, and arcade machines, which also included some modern and classic games not available on the 1st floor. There were vending machines, which contained various tasty snacks and beverages, a coffee machine with various coffee flavor packs including rare flavors never seen before, even a miniature refrigerator/freezer unit, and a cooking area, microwave, and mini oven included, 2 sinks, and even a window to get a view of the guests below. There was just so much stuff in that room that it seemed more like a tiny house rather than a staff lounge. After a tour of the 2nd floor, we took the stairs up to the 3rd floor, where another door greeted us. The words Mechanics and Engineering were labeled on it. I assumed that was where the animatronic band was taken to be repaired or upgraded. I was right, of course, because once we entered inside, I saw parts and pieces of animatronics, old and new, scattered all around the room, with fursuits laid about on counters and tables, and clothes as well as toolkits, which kinda gave me a bit of a creepy FNAF vibe as I walked past this metallic boneyard towards the next door. The words security room on it, and as we entered inside, I could see dozens of monitors. They showed me the entire building, inside and out, which made me feel somewhat glad that this Chuck E. Cheese was a lot safer than many other ones, giving a nice sense of security. Anyway, I went home after the tour ended, trying to get a good night's sleep, but being too excited to even sleep at all. I had finally found a job, and now my parents could finally leave me alone for once. Luck was finally on my side. But, like I said before, not exactly a summer I wanted to remember. But it beats the alternative, having to go to a summer camp full of angsty and hormonal teenagers. Ooh, I shudder just thinking about it. The next day, I woke up around 6 a.m. and got myself ready, taking a quick shower and brushing my hair. Then, having a quick breakfast, and before rushing over to the Chuck E. Cheese, where my friend and new boss, Sebastian, was waiting for me by the front door. He had a stern yet happy expression on his face.
I see you decided to show up after all,
my boss said sternly.
And to think I was just about to post job auditions online,
he continued as he let out a chuckle. I couldn't help but chuckle myself as well. Well, I'm here to stay, I said, smiling at him. So what job would you like me to do? I asked as I followed my boss inside and entered the building.
Is there anything in particular you're looking to do?
My boss asked as he led me around the building. Well, Something easy but not too easy, I said. Something to pass the time, but still keep me busy, I continued as I rubbed the back of my head, pondering my thoughts. Looking around, my boss began to rub his chin in thought, only to stop after a few minutes before snapping back to reality.
I've got it!
He excitedly shouted, which caused me to jump up in fright for a moment before calming down, looking back at him.
Sorry about that.
My boss said, letting out a chuckle. I smiled nervously, as if afraid my boss would think I was a big sissy. No worries, I said.
Now then, you better come back later tonight.
My boss said. Later tonight? I asked. But why? I continued as I looked at my boss with a confused expression.
I will explain later,
my boss said sternly. Doing as my boss said, I went home, coming back only to be greeted by the sight of my parents with their arms crossed and stern-looking expressions on their faces, letting out a sigh. I looked back at them with an annoyed, yet calm expression. What do you want now? I frustratingly asked.
What are you doing back here?
My mom angrily asked.
You're supposed to be out job searching, mister.
She continued.
Your mother's right, son.
My dad said.
Even if she is raising her voice a bit too much.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My parents were still nagging me, even after I came back home from Chuck E. Cheese, yet I suppose it was my fault for not telling them I got a job when I should have. Giving into my emotions and finally having enough of my parents' nagging, I snapped. Something I had never done before. Would you both just shut the hell up and just listen to me for once? I shouted, quickly covering my mouth. And worried my parents might do something brash for my foul mouth. Yet, they didn't, and said nothing. They simply sat down on the stairs and looked at me with almost petrified yet surprised expressions before finally speaking.
Okay, son, we'll listen,
my dad said, then looking at me normally again. I couldn't believe it. My parents finally decided to listen to me for once. Something in all my life I'd never thought I'd ever hear or see, yet quickly took advantage of. Look, I appreciate your concern about me and my need for a job, but I already have a job, I said. I just got hired yesterday, and I start later tonight. My parents snapped out of their daze and immediately gasped in shock, smiling at me happily.
That's great, honey. Where's this new job of yours?
My mom said, letting out a sigh. And knowing my parents would probably not agree with my choice, I spoke. Chuck E. Cheese. I then watched as my parents froze once again, going from smiling to just staring at me with blank expressions. Oh boy, here it comes, I thought.
Which one?
My father asked in a somber tone. The one down the street on... Okay, quick side note before I continue on with my story. Due to me still working for the company, I am afraid I can't say exactly where it was because of privacy reasons. Plus, all workers are required to keep anything shady that happens at any of the stores a secret when they sign those application forms. The one down the street a few blocks from our house, I said, looking at my father nervously. Clenching his fist, my father raised his voice at me, shouting, not just with anger, but fear as well.
Have you completely lost it, boy?
My back hit the side of the staircase when I slowly stepped away. I'm sorry, Dad, I whined. It was the only place closest to our house, and my school too, I continued.
I don't want you ever going there, understand?
My dad shouted. I'm sorry, Dad, I apologized, but I've already filled out my job application form, and I'm not about to quit because of your hatred for the place, I continued.
Just go then,
my dad said as he walked away with my mother.
But don't say I didn't warn you,
he continued as me and my mother went upstairs to their bedroom. I then went to my bedroom as well, trying to get some extra sleep in, but being unable to, as my father's words kept echoing in my head.
Just go then. But don't say I didn't warn you. Don't
say over and over again, making me wonder what had him so worked up like that. Anyways, after almost 5 hours trying to sleep, I finally did. only to awaken during the night to the sounds of my cell phone alarm going off. What the fuck? I mumbled to myself. And I guess it's shut eye around here. I continued as I let out a frustrated growl. However, looking at my phone clock, I quickly snapped out of my sleepy state, realizing it was almost 11:40 at night. Fuck! I'm late. Getting myself ready, I exited my house, not even having time to eat, and only taking my keys with me. Then, running like hell, I quickly arrived at the Chuck E. Cheese, panting heavily as I tried to catch my breath. I'm here, I said, still panting low on my words. Did I make it? Looking at me with a stern look, my boss crossed his arms.
You're late,
he said in a firm tone. Sorry about that, I said, while chuckling nervously. I couldn't sleep very well. Letting out a chuckle himself, my boss smiled.
First day jitters?
He asked. Yeah, I said, not wanting to tell him about what happened back home with my parents.
Well, I'll let it slide for today.
Thank you, sir, I said. I promised to show up earlier tomorrow. I continued as I put on my Chuck E. Cheese shirt and cap.
That's what I like to hear,
my boss said.
Now follow me to the security room.
Then, following him, I began to wonder why we were heading to the security room. Was this going to be my job, or did my boss need to get something before assigning me a task? I wasn't sure. That's when we arrived, and Sebastian looked at me.
Welcome aboard, Security Officer David,
he said. Security officer? I asked, looking at him confused.
That's right,
my boss said excitedly. What are my tasks? I asked, looking at my boss.
It's quite simple,
he said.
You just need to monitor the screens, and keep an eye out for any hooligans trying to vandalize or sneak into our property.
Nodding, I watched as my boss left for the night. Then, closing the door, I sat down and watched all the monitors closely. Not much activity, except for the animatronics performing for an empty room. Kinda creepy, if you ask me. A little boring as well. But that's when things took a strange turn. As I monitored each area of the Chuck E. Cheese, the screens began to freeze and show static. I could also hear whispers and the laughter of children as well. Just what the hell was going on? I thought maybe it was my mind playing tricks on me, or perhaps an employee pranking me because I was the new guy. Either way, I was beginning to get anxious, even though it had only been a few minutes since I started. But I decided to tough it out, only focusing on getting my job done so I could go home the next day. I spent many hours watching those screens, the same activity over and over. Checking the time and seeing it was 7 a.m., I finally saw the light of day appear through the window behind me. What a relief. I then went home, only to have my dad block my path. What now, Dad? I asked, angrily and impatiently. My dad didn't say anything, but shoved a bunch of newspapers and magazines in my face.
Here,
my dad growled, finally speaking.
Maybe this will show you what really goes on behind closed doors at your workplace.
Of course, I didn't bother saying anything and just walked off. Just what was my dad's deal anyway? Going into the living room and sitting down on the couch, I began to read the newspaper and magazines my dad shoved in my face. What I saw would haunt me forever. I shouldn't even say what it... No, I have to. So, no other employee, parent, or teen can suffer the same fate. Here I go. The newspapers and magazines showed images of children, teens, and adults missing, all of which disappeared at the very same Chuck E. Cheese I was working at. But that was just the half of it. Things would only get worse from there. As I scrolled through the internet on my phone, I watched a bunch of news documentaries about the incidents that happened at that particular Chuck E. Cheese. Witness reports from children, teens, and adults who all claim to have seen something so shocking it drove them to insanity. I was shocked to discover that 2 of the witnesses were my mom and dad. I won't say their names to keep them safe, but I know it was them from the images I saw. No wonder they were so freaked out. I, however, chose not to follow the warning, and thought of it as nothing more than sabotage by my parents. I arrived at work the next night, like before, but this time a bit earlier. The same activity as the night before followed. Whispers, laughter, and of course static, then ending with me going home for the night. For the next days, it was the same routine, yet things only began to get stranger, and, I won't lie, creepier. However, due to me being blinded by my stubbornness and pride, I decided to continue the job. I wasn't going to let a few sounds and screen static bother me or force me to quit. Only a baby will let such things get to them. Night 6 was where my job finally went from strange to just plain creepy. I could hear the whispers and laughter getting louder and louder. The monitors now began to show faces in the static and blood dripping down the screen. I could almost touch it. I decided then and there to do more research on this place, while I waited for the relieving warmth of daylight. But what I discovered come to haunt me forever. To this day, I still wish what I saw was just a sick joke, but I know it wasn't. I saw the autopsy reports of children, teens, and adults, all discovered at that very same Chuck E. Cheese where I had been working when I searched through old news reports dating back as far as the 80s. Most of them barely identified as some of the missing people I had read about in the newspapers and magazines, yet the most horrific part of the reports were the images of each victim. Excuse me for... They all had bite marks belonging to an animal of unknown origin. Their bodies were mangled and decayed in such a way that I can't even describe. It was like something out of a horror movie. That's all I can say. Anyways, I managed to get through the night okay, but when I got home, I wasn't able to get a single minute of sleep. All I could think about was the strange phenomena I had been experiencing at that Chuck E. Cheese. The missing children, those gruesome and grisly images, not to mention the fact my parents were somehow involved in all this. And now I was too. The final day of my first week, things didn't seem to change much. It was pretty much the same activity I had been experiencing. I was hoping it would all just end there. But it didn't. The first night of my second week got only crazier. The sound and noise became louder, ranging from whispers and laughter to cries and screams of terror. Looking at the monitor, I could see things in the different rooms being moved about. It was like some kind of force had been doing it. I then saw what I thought was a child playing in the ball pit of the play area, but it was too blurry to see clearly, so I tried focusing the image up a bit, but the camera just went static. That's when the answers became clear to me. Something happened at this Chuck E. Cheese. Something so terrible, it drove everyone involved to silence, including my own parents. That past had now literally come back to haunt the very place where it all happened. But why? I had to find out more, so I went back on my phone. What I discovered next left me silent as well. Some kind of serial killer had dressed up in a Chuck E. Cheese costume and slaughtered all these people. There were even traces of blood on his suit when he was caught back by police in the 90s. Yet he denied anything. According to police statements, the killer had been in some kind of daze. He was unresponsive to any warnings they gave him before taking him down. In prison, he wouldn't even respond to the questions he was asked in detainment. He simply muttered the words, "Los Malvados," over and over again. Translating the words in my head, I was to see what it meant. Evil ones. That's as far as I could get through because my shift had finally ended and I went home. But like before, I was unable to sleep. All I could think about was the horrible things I had read about and seen. I began to wonder, did I want this job anymore? Were my parents tricking me with fake news to keep me safe, or was it to hide the truth? I just couldn't make sense of anything and wasn't sure what to believe. I pressed on though, going to work that week as well, and making it all the way to the third week. That week, however, will be my last time working there before I transfer to another store located in another area, a bit further away. But I wasn't going to be allowed to leave that easily. Things seemed normal on the first night of my third week there. Well, I wouldn't exactly say they were normal, but I continued on despite all of the usual creepy sounds and stupid security glitches. I had no idea that I was in for one hell of a surprise. I really should have quit then and there while I was at it. I saw the animatronics look directly at the camera while I was monitoring them. Their eyes switched from their normal colors to blood red and black pupils, and were dripping blood. What the hell was up with those robots? How could they have possibly known I was watching them? The camera was placed way above the corner wall. They shouldn't have been able to turn their heads like that. Their heads could only turn about 30 degrees to the left and right from what I read about the animatronics, but their heads had turned a full 180 degrees just to face me. The camera monitors all began to glitch like crazy, showing static and freezing up even more than they had during my first and second week there. That only made matters worse. Now, I had no way of knowing what would come next. Then, I heard a loud crash coming from downstairs on the third floor. What the hell was that? I thought to myself. I managed to get the cameras partially working again and saw something I never thought possible. Chuck E. was standing in the mechanics and engineering room, looking right at me with those very same blood-red eyes. But then he spoke in a voice that still haunts me to this day. God, that voice. It almost sounded like a mixture of Chuck E's voice and a child's, but with a demonic tone.
I see you in there, David.
I jumped out of my seat. How do you know my name? Especially when I hadn't gotten a name tag yet. There's no way he could have known who I was. He's a fucking robot. He shouldn't have even been walking, let alone roaming around the store like that. This was something you'd only see in horror movies or a video game like FNAF. Yet there he was, standing right there and looking directly at me with that menacing stare. I wanted to scream, to call out for help, but my voice was silenced by the fear in me taking over. I just sat there, frozen fear and looking at Chuck E before the camera finally went to glitchy static again, which caused me to snap out of my daze and go back to my duties. I switched the camera over to the other rooms, but no activity. Going back to the stage room, I saw all three animatronics back in their normal positions. Chuck E, once again, frozen in place. Was I going crazy, or did I really... My thoughts were then interrupted by my cell phone alarm going off. It was time for me to leave and let the day shift employees take over. I went home, with even more questions now in my mind. It was finally time to discover the truth and find out why everything at work has been happening to me. This time, my parents weren't home. They had gone away on a business trip and would not be back for at least a few days. Luckily, they left their laptop computers at home, since they probably left in such a hurry. They either forgot them or decided to leave them there at the house. I took advantage of the situation and did some more research. This time, doing something that my parents would probably kill me for doing if they ever found out. I went on the dark web and discovered things about the Chuck E. Cheese I worked at. dark and terrible things. I found out the entire building was once a satanic church of sorts. It had been used for multiple sacrificial rituals as well. But without any explanation, the entire cult there had just disappeared. They were all children, teens, and adults, just like the current victims who disappeared at that same building years later. Scrolling down further, I found horrific images of animals being sacrificed. Rats, dogs, and chickens. Each one with a strange symbol drawn on their forehead before death. I wanted to throw up, to look away from the horrors. I decided to keep going though, which led me to finding even more creepier stuff, images and videos of the aftermath of these horrific rituals. One image showed a transition of a person morphing from normal human being into a purple-looking demonic creature with a thick body build and fur all over the body. I immediately dropped the computer and froze in shock. It couldn't have been. That creature in the photos was Mr. Munch, one of the mascots of Chuck E. Cheese. I wanted to doubt what I saw, but I couldn't. I knew it was him. Those same sharp teeth, that silly toothy grin, that purple fur, complete with a golden orange mohawk, and those green eyes. It was him. Brought to life in some sick and twisted ritual. That's not what freaked me out though. No, the thing that freaked me out was the year those photos and videos were all taken. The date was May 17th, 1975, 2 years before the very first Chuck E. Cheese was opened and the company was born. So, how did these cult worshippers bring a character from our company to life when it hadn't even existed yet? I decided, first thing tonight, I would confront my boss to see what he knew. I didn't care if I would get fired either. I just wanted to know what was up with that Chuck E. Cheese. I couldn't take it anymore. I left my house around 11:30 p.m. and arrived about 10 minutes later. My boss was still there, waiting for me. This was it. Today, I would finally get all the answers.
Oh, hey there, David.
I shoved my boss against the wall in a fit of rage. What are you doing? Tell me now. Letting out a chuckle, my boss squirmed and struggled to break free of the grip I had on him.
What's going on with you, David?
Shoving him again, I spoke. Shut up and answer me now. My boss, however, maintained his innocence.
Look, if this is some kind of prank, you'll have to do better than this,
said my boss. Breaking down to tears, I released my boss. I'm sorry, Sebastian.
What's the matter?
My boss asked as he patted my back and held me closely. I want a new shift. I want.
What happened?
My boss asked.
You were doing so well for the past couple weeks.
After calming down and taking a few breaths, I looked at my boss. Get an exorcist out here immediately, I said before heading inside and locking up for the night. My boss then walked away and left. I knew I shouldn't have been there. I should have quit right then and there. But seeing my boss look at me like that made me realize he was innocent and knew nothing about what was going on here at this Chuck E. Cheese. He was just as much of a victim as me, and most likely blinded as well. I, however, was now fully aware of what was going on. These animatronics were no robots. They were evil, demonic creatures, meant to trick those foolish enough to get too close and devour them. They, most likely, killed those Satanists as well, and consumed them too. Now, there was nothing to stop them from consuming everyone here, except to watch them and keep them from getting out. As I switched between camera angles, I noticed another animatronic had wandered off and entered one of the rooms. It was Helen, the chicken animatronic. She was in the playroom, interacting with all the different areas. I let out a sigh of relief, hoping she didn't see me. I was wrong. She knew I was there, and started to taunt me, singing a twisted version of the song Ring Around the Rosies over and over again. It was in the exact same mixed voice as Chucky. I'd rather not repeat or share the lyrics, but I might as well. Sorry. Just give me a moment to clear my throat. Okay. Here's what I heard Helen singing.
We're gonna catch you. There's no escape for you. If you try, you'll die. Time to say goodbye. We're gonna get you. There's no escape for you. If you try, you'll die. Time to say goodbye.
I felt sick to my stomach. It was like my entire childhood had been twisted and altered. I grew up going to this Chuck E. Cheese as a kid, and I remember each birthday I've had here too. Now, it was nothing more but a literal hell. I then went back to monitoring the other rooms and switched between cameras. There was no activity, of course, not even from Chuck E. It seemed Helen was the only one walking and roaming around. The weird thing about this was that she mainly stuck to the playroom, usually leaving the other rooms out of boredom, and not sticking around them much. The light of day finally came, and I went home. All I could think about now was whether or not I wanted to work there anymore. Should I quit and let my boss deal with these monsters himself? Or stay, find a way to stop them? I wasn't sure. Taking out my cell phone, I left a message to my boss. Hey, Sebastian. Sorry for losing it like that last night, I said. I've just been stressed out lately, and I'm not sure if I can take the night shift any longer. I hung up and put away my phone, waiting for a call back. I then checked my cell phone after a bit and saw that I had gotten a text from Sebastian. I understand you're stressed out, and I appreciate you being honest with me, but I'm afraid there are no day shift jobs available right now, the message said. Please be patient, and I will message the company to see what I can do. I closed my phone and let out a sigh. Great, looks like I'm stuck in that hell a bit longer, I thought to myself. Could this day get any worse? I was really up the shit creek without a paddle now, and my boat was sinking fast. I had no other options left but to hang on as long as possible till my boss got me out of there, even if he had no idea what was really going on in this store. I went to work as usual, and locked up for the night. This time, however, as I switched between cameras and monitored each room, I saw they were empty. The stage room, however, was not. Chucky and Helen had not moved at all since I started my shift. They were perfectly stationary. What a relief. They've run out of power. I, of course, only ended up jinxing myself. As I zoomed in on the animatronics, I saw the monitor glitch and freeze up again. Then it went to static, and I could hear the screaming and crying of children. I should have known better, I thought to myself. I had been there long enough to know what that busted up monitor screen sound meant by now. As the monitor returned to normal, I saw that this time, Mr. Munch and Pasquale were both gone. They had wandered off just like Chucky and Helen did, only in one place I knew they'd be. I switched the camera over to the kitchen area and buffet counter I remembered from earlier when I took the tour with my boss. I was right, of course. Mr. Munch was by the buffet area, eating old and stale food from the counter. Well, Chef Pasquale was in that kitchen fooling around with the kitchen supplies and making various dishes for nobody. It was kind of funny for a while and gave me a good chuckle. Until I saw what Chef Pasquale and Mr. Munch did next. Pasquale began singing and humming a creepy and distorted version of the Italian march, or Funiculi Funicula, for those of you who speak or understand Italian. I watched as Pasquale sang while violently chopping up cuts of meat with a meat cleaver. He had those same blood-red eyes as Chucky and Helen, and looked right at me as he continued violently chopping up the meat. Looking at Mr. Munch made the fear in me grow even more. It was bad enough that these robots wanted to either rip me to shreds and stuff my corpse full of robotic parts, break into the room I was in and kill me, or even butcher me alive and cook me like a turkey. Being eaten alive by one of them was even worse though. Mr. Munch got his name for a reason, and he looked like Pennywise with all those sharp and serrated teeth of his. His smile wasn't even a silly, toothy grin anymore, like in those old posters from the 90s. It was now a humongous and outstretched bear trap of a mouth, but with a lot more teeth. I was the poor animal now being hunted. I kept monitoring both animatronics until finally the light of day came. Taking a quick and last look at the stage room, I saw all that the animatronics were back on the normal spot. It was like they never got up and left. 4 animatronics down, 1 to go. As I left the building, I saw employees cleaning and preparing for more guests that would arrive soon. I almost found it sad and worrisome that none of them were able to see those animatronics for what they really were. Not the children, not the teens, and not even the adults. I was the only one who knew and saw the truth. Then I went home and crashed on the couch as soon as I arrived, but my dreams were haunted by everything I had seen and experienced. I began to see flashes of children, young and old, giggling and playing one second, and then screaming and crying in terror the next. I could see those fucking animatronic demons taunting me and devouring parts of their victims, telling me I couldn't save them, and that I was next. I woke up immediately, and a fright grabbed my chest. My heart had never beat so fast. I was never more afraid than I was then. I didn't even feel safe in my own home anymore. I realized then and there the only way to end my torment is stop those monsters from taking any more innocent souls or tormenting anyone else was to destroy them and the grounds in which they spawned from. I didn't know how I would do it, but I had to act fast. It was only a matter of time before someone foolish would release them from the confines of that Chuck E. Cheese and set them all free. I could not allow that to happen. I then went on the internet looking up ways to ward off and destroy evil spirits, especially demons. I found all sorts of cool stuff too. Things like holy water, sacred embalming liquids, and special spiritual oils to protect yourself and others, as well as using special sacred potions to start fires that can burn down any evil grounds and kill off the spirits spawned from them. Not hesitating for a second, I immediately got to work and ordered what I needed from the internet. I got all sorts of stuff: holy water, sacred oils, special potions, powerful herbs, and even a spirit guide with magical spells and holy incantations included. I was now ready to end this madness once and for all. I didn't care if it meant losing my job or going to prison. I hid the equipment in my school bag and went to work as usual. But no amount of bravery I felt could prepare me for the shocking news I was about to receive. I arrived at work, only to see police officers and a mortician vehicle parked outside the front lawn. What happened here? I thought to myself as I ran up to the officers before being shoved back by one of them.
Stay behind the tape, sir. This is a crime scene.
The officer said. I work here, though, I said to the officer. Can you tell me what happened? The officer let out a sigh, then placed a hand on my shoulder.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but the manager who worked here is dead.
I immediately froze and dropped to my knees. I watched as two morticians carried out a body bag with my dead high school buddy inside. It didn't take a detective or FBI agent to know what happened. Those fucking robots did this.
Will you be alright, son?
Asked the officer who held me back up. You're certain it was Sebastian and Lucius? I asked in a broken voice as I struggled to hold back my tears.
Yes, his ID was on him,
said the officer.
I'm sorry about your friend.
He then handed me a plastic card and left with the other people there. I angrily crushed the card and tossed it on the ground without a care. I had only one focus on my mind. I wanted to seek revenge, not only for those who had fallen victim, but for my friend, who became their latest victim. I took my things inside and marked the entrance door and exit with sacred oil. I also marked each and every window too. There was nowhere for those monsters to get out now. I would take them with me if I had to. I then headed up to the security room and started my shift like any normal night. I watched each and every room like a hawk. This time, all of the animatronics had walked and wandered off, each one going in different rooms. Chucky was in the mechanics and engineering room, and Helen was in the kiddie zone playroom, while Chef Pasquale was in the kitchen area, and Mr. Munch was the buffet area. The only animatronic left now was Jasper the dog. He was the toughest to track, because he kept teleporting from one room to another. It didn't help that he made the cameras and monitors go crazy either. In fact, he made them even worse than Chucky or Helen. It was now a literal game of cat and mouse, or rather, dog and cat. After a bit of a struggle, I finally managed to find Jasper. He was in the laser tag and laser grid room, maneuvering around the laser grids and firing a laser pistol at targets. He didn't seem at all that threatening to me either. He seemed more like a playful cowboy puppy. That's when he looked back at the camera and gave that same evil gaze as the other animatronics. Okay, so he wasn't as harmless as I thought. That's when I heard him speak in a distorted and demonic tone.
Time for this pup to unleash his inner
bloodhound.
Jasper then let out a monstrous growl. And all the power around the building instantly shut down. The only thing left running was the gas and wall lights located around the building. I had to get out of there fast, and there was only one way out. The emergency exits located at the very back of the building. It would not be easy though, because the whole place was built like a maze, with no other options left, and no security to keep me safe. I grabbed a flashlight and exited the security room. I looked around, shining the flashlight all around me, but it was clear. I then walked down the stairs to the next floor, where I knew Chucky would be. I wasn't looking forward to it. I entered the mechanics and engineering room, only to find it was empty. I was safe for the moment, but I had to get out of there fast before Chucky came back. I shined my flashlight around, hoping to find the knob, but I found Chucky instead. He just stood there by the rotting and decaying endoskeletons of a broken down brown bear and gorilla.
Go to hell, Chucky, and get out of my way,
I shouted as I threw a vial of holy water at Chucky's face, causing it to dissolve and melt away, which made him screech in pain as half of his face fell off, revealing a demonic monster underneath. I then exited the room quickly and headed down to the staff lounge on the second floor. This was perfect. I finally found a way to destroy this entire place and blow it to hell. I quickly started slicing apart gas pipes and messing with electrical outlets. I also left the water running before heading down to the first floor. As I looked around, my flashlight began to die. This was Jasper's work, so I took out some sacred oil and blessed my flashlight, which quickly caused it to work again. As I walked around the massive building, I noticed all the doors, windows, and exits had been blocked by chairs, tables, and arcade machine. They really didn't want me to leave, so they blocked any paths out. I wasn't going down without a fight though, and prepared more vials of holy water. I was finally ready to take down these fucking monsters. After a bit of walking around in this hellish maze, I made it to the kitchen area, where I repeated the same actions I made in the staff lounge, and double-checked just to be sure my plan would work. It had to. This was the only option left. A long walk later, I made it to the very end of the building. Helen, Mr. Munch, Pasquale, and Jasper were all waiting for me. They would not let me leave though, and I wasn't about to let them add me to their kill count. I threw holy water vials at each one, causing them great pain as their fake fleshy sheaths began to burn off and expose the monsters underneath. Brutal, I know, but it was quite effective. Anyway, I managed to get out the back exit and make it outside. But I was suddenly grabbed by a cold metal hand. I looked behind and see Chucky dragging me back inside that hellish building. I knew now this was it. If I was going down, I was taking these metal monstrosities with me. I then turned on my special silver lighter and tossed it onto the ground, watching as the entire building exploded into flames. All the souls trapped there were now free and floating back up to the heavens. At last, the evil which took all those innocent souls were now gone. And I was happy to die, knowing I ended it once and for all. I closed my eyes and thought of all those close to me before finally blacking out. A few days later, I woke up in a hospital bed, hooked up to several IV drips and medical monitoring machines. I was surrounded by my mother and father, who looked extremely worried.
Oh, thank God you're okay. I thought we'd lost you.
My mother cried as she broke down into tears. I smiled at my mother weakly, knowing the pain in my body as I hugged her. I'm here now. I will never be stubborn or disobey you guys again, I said, wiping my mom's tears with bandaged fingers.
Next time, you take the jobs we offer you, okay?
My dad said jokingly as he let out a chuckle. Yeah, I've definitely learned my lesson now, I said jokingly back. I, of course, would not live up to my promise because I was transferred to another Chuck E. Cheese a bit further away from my house. But at least this one wasn't cursed or haunted. Then again, with all these multi-million-dollar and billion-dollar companies, you never know what dark secrets they are hiding from you. As for me, I plan on quitting the company next year, once I start college. My mom and dad have already agreed to help with the expenses, which is nice. I suppose it's to make up for my injuries. Maybe one day I will tell them what really happened. As for the fire, it's been deemed an accident by the company, fire experts and detectives. They say it was caused by faulty construction. We all know it wasn't though. I know it wasn't. For now though, let the media and everyone else believe what they want. If they want to think what happened was an accident, I couldn't care less. I only care that now no one else will have to suffer again. I know what I did was illegal, but sometimes even the goodest of deeds require ignoring what is right and wrong and just doing it. Anyway, my advice to you is that if you ever find yourself working late at a Chuck E. Cheese, make sure you do your research because you never know the history of the store you're assigned to. This goes for any other company as well. Disney, Universal, Six Flags, etc. There are many secrets being hidden by these companies. But be careful you do not find yourself caught in the middle of it, or you could just be another secret they decide to bury.